I am without a beverage and without a microphone today. I sort of put out a Q&A on Instagram asking people what other kind of content they would like to see from me, and I got a lot of lifestyle-based questions. Ways to fill your cup as a girl in her early 30s, health and fitness tips, just general lifestyle-based content. And it got me into thinking about how do I want to portray lifestyle content in a sort of sphere that's already heavily saturated with so much stuff. And I'm somebody who also consumes this content. For me, when I started thinking about a way of how to portray sort of lifestyle-based things from my own point of view, I started going a little bit deeper. And around this time, I started reading this book by Katie Hessel called How to Live an Artful Life. And I've been reading pages of this book every single day. I realized for me, a lot of how I live and interact and engage with this world does come from the fact that I consider myself an artist. I never like to claim myself as an artist. I never like to say that I'm an artist because I always felt like I had nothing to really show for it. Like I had nothing tangible or nothing that I monetized off of to be like, hey, I'm an artist because, you know, my stuff was in a gallery or I published a book or something. I think for me, being an artist is just integrated into my own personal value system and into the way that I like to take care of myself and live my life. I started doing a lot of note-taking on this and mood boarding and mind mapping. And I do want to go more in depth and more in detail in future videos on the different things that I want to talk about. But for today's video, I kind of want to give you guys an overview on like kind of the foundations or the roots to what living artfully really means to me. Now this starts off with three fragments and three aspects. For me, it starts with the self, with the world, and with the actual creation. And that is how I've broken all these three things down. I'm going to start off by talking about the self because this is the one thing that I feel like I've really had to learn how to do over time. And that was how to prioritize me. A while ago, I had a conversation with a friend and she was really digging this ideology into my head about ways to fill my own cup. And she pointed out that I'm really good at filling other people's cup, but I'm not really good at replenishing my own cup. And since I had that conversation with that friend, I started looking at taking care of myself in a very, very different way. And one of the main shifts that I had in terms of my own ideology is the fact that if I'm not taking care of myself, then I cannot take care of other people. And therefore, I also cannot take care of making my own art. I'm way too overdressed, but as I was editing my video, I wanted to share a few things. In regards to the self, I'm talking about everything that encompasses self-care. So lifestyle and wellness, the things that you like to do, the way you spend your time alone. It has everything to do with you. A lot of what I talk about has to do with books. But when it comes to the self, it's not just fully centered around books and the things that I read. Art and media and culture just generally have such a huge influence and impact on me. Writing, whether it's paintings, whether it's something visual or something that I can hear, art generally has a huge influence on how I live my life, but also kind of like how I perceive life around me. So when talking about the self, there is a book that I really want to talk about that I think has helped me kind of shape the way I view the world a lot and how I started to approach life. And you've probably seen many, many people talk about this book before, but this is Letters to a Young Poet by Rainer Maria Rilke. And Rilke actually wrote these letters to Franz Xaver. And in these letters, he was just giving him a lot of insight on what it means to like be a poet and to create. But there were so many deeper lessons in here and so many words in here that just stood out and resonated to me. I constantly think about Letters to a Young Poet. There are many points in Rilke's letters where he talks about solitude, and I feel like it's really important to cultivate that relationship with yourself. Rilke really highlights how beautiful it is to kind of engage in that relationship with your solitude, but also to just kind of like live in the questions and live in your own path and following your own path. And I wanted to share some words. For this reason, dear Mr. Kappas, love your solitude and bear the pain it causes you with melody wrought with lament. For the people who are close to you, you tell me, are far away, and that shows that you are beginning to create a wider space around you. And if what is close is far, then the space around you is wide indeed, and already among the stars. It is good that for a moment you are going into a profession which will make you independent and mean you only have yourself to rely on in every sense. Have patience to wait and see whether your inmost life feels confined by the form of this occupation. I consider it very difficult and a very demanding one, as it is burdened by powerful conventions and leaves almost no room to interpret its duties according to your own lights. But your solitude, even in the midst of quite foreign circumstances, will be a hold and a home for you, and leading from it you will find all the paths you need. All my good wishes are ready to accompany you, and you have all my confidence and trust. Pretty much commonplace, this entire book. I wrote down so many of these quotes by hand because I really wanted them to stick with me. And even now, I find myself turning to Rilke quite often, especially to these letters, when I need a sense of guidance. The next part of this to me is the world. Now, this is a really important aspect because I live in such a community-based country and in such a community-based culture that the idea of being supremely independent is so foreign to me. I'm so used to the community aspect of things. I feel like especially nowadays with the way our world is set up that is constantly trying to figure out new ways to divide us, I feel like giving back and connecting is more important than ever. When I'm talking about the world and I'm saying the world, this includes friends, family, the people you put yourself around, your community spaces, and also the spaces themselves. I feel like we also often forget that our environment also plays a huge role on how we engage and interact with the world too, not just the people. It's kind of a combination of the two. I realize it's all about the give and take. And I realized that you can't necessarily give to the world unless you are filling your own cup first. Because once I started putting myself in community spaces where I felt safe, to express myself, to talk about my interests, to really explore and grow. And I put myself in spaces around people who are so diverse. Like diversity, I feel like is so important. I started to learn so much, not just about myself, but also about the world around me and the people around me. I feel like I said, the setting in our environment plays a huge role. Like when you walk into a museum or into a coffee shop, or if you're going to the beach, or if you're just, in a mall or in a store or anything like that, how you're engaging with your world, even on that level, I feel like also really matters. I just realized as I've started getting older, my intentions with the people around me and with my environment has started to play a huge impact on me. And there's a book that I want to talk about, and that is All About Love by Bell Hooks. I'm a huge Bell Hooks fan, and All About Love is essentially about love itself. And I truly believe that like love is the thing that drives everything. It drives how we treat ourselves, how we treat the people around us. And All About Love by Bell Hooks completely reframed the way I view love and I view the concept of love. And I realized that my viewpoint of love was so small and so tiny until I read this book. And as you can see, I have so many tabs in here. I went on a journey with this book. I was taking annotations. I was writing things down. And there's so many aspects of this book that I think is really important. And I feel like every person should read this book, because not only does this book teach you how to love yourself, in the way it teaches you how to love yourself, it teaches you how to love the world around you. And I think that is so essential and so important in everything that we do. The way we look at our world, the way we engage with our world, the way we interact with our world, I feel like all comes from a place of love. And I feel like that is the most important thing to always remember and reflect on. And Bell Hooks covers that so beautifully and All About Love. The last kind of fragment of this introduction is the creation. And that is taking the self and taking the world, taking all those experiences, all those emotions, all those inspirations, whatever I get from those two, and being able to translate that through the language of art. Like, it's just being able to alchemize all of those things and then make something out of it. If you're an artist who's an artist in private and you choose to keep it that way, if you choose not to monetize your art, if you choose just to create for yourself and for your own happiness, that's also okay. But if you're the kind of person who wants to share your art out into the world, that's also okay too. I feel like having one artistic practice in your day-to-day life is so important, even if it's like coloring, if it's tracing. I just feel like being able to engage in something creative, even if that thing is like watching movies or supporting the arts or doing stuff like that, I feel like it's so important, and it's so important to us as people. Like, I think about the cave paintings of just these like cavemen who were making art way back when, and it just gives me this like beautiful sense of knowing that all humans just wanted to create even at the start of like how our species were evolving. So I think that's just a beautiful thing. The book that I'm talking about, How to Live an Artful Life, is definitely one that I would recommend to almost everyone to read if you especially want like daily prompts, things to think about when it comes to your art practice and how you can integrate different ideas and thoughts into your art practice. That is definitely a great book. And of course, so many people talk about The Artist's Way. And this I think is really great if you are a practicing artist, if you're somebody who creates a lot and you want to kind of help navigate your way through either blocks or how to pursue your personal projects. Now, I have certain critiques with The Artist's Way. I don't think this works for everyone in terms of like the exercises and stuff like that, but I do feel like the actual text and the words in this book are really inspiring. These are kind of like my guiding points. And these are the things that I always focus on. And I always pay attention to which areas are lacking and which areas need more attention. And I just always pay attention to these three things when I generally feel like I'm a little lost. You know what I'm trying to say? This transitions to another kind of base ideology that I have, and that is ritual over routine. I feel like having daily rituals could be literally anything. It could be tending to your plants. It could be praying if you're somebody who's religious. It could be making your morning beverage every single morning. It could be the ritual of writing for 30 minutes every single day. I feel like whatever rituals you have that you integrate into your daily life, I feel like little rituals give you structure, and you can also add those little rituals into the different avenues of what I talked about. I also just wanted to share a quick quote here from Byung Chul-Hang on rituals and time, because I feel like he really describes so beautifully why ritual over routine is so important. We can define rituals as symbolic techniques of making oneself at home in the world. They transform being in the world into being at home. They turn the world into a reliable place. They are to time what a home is to space. They render time habitable. They even make it accessible, like a house. They structure time, furnish it. In his novel, Citadel, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry describes rituals as a temporal technique of making oneself home in the world. And I felt like that was just such a beautiful way to really show the power of ritual over routine. There's this quote that also references Byung Chul-Hang, and I just really wanted to read this quote as well. In The Disappearance of Ritual, Byung Chul-Hang explains that rituals are categorized by repetition. Repetition differs from routine in its capacity to create intensity. Rituals involved enacting reality, tapping into the imaginal, the place between our minds and the world, to take on new and wider perspectives. We can do this by revisiting over and over again particular gestures, stories, practices, and techniques to deepen our relatedness. I've been putting this into practice in my own day-to-day life, and I realize when I try to set up a routine for myself, like a morning routine or an evening routine that's super strict, that has no flexibility, no fluidity, and no kind of like repetition, I feel that's really kept me, that's really made it feel like it was something accessible for me, I always fell off. And I would always fall off of like my little morning habits and my evening habits, and then I'd feel so bogged down by it because I'm like, what am I doing that's wrong? And then I started just doing little things. I started noticing like in my mornings, like, okay, what is something that I do repeatedly? And it's been seamless since then. The reason why I've also personally shifted into more ritual-based thinking instead of routine-based thinking is because, like I said, I realized at some point I was treating myself like I was just some productivity machine that was supposed to be productive 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that is not a great way to think personally. But choosing ritual over routine is something that I also learned in tandem with being seasonal and learning to live more seasonally. I actually recently just read this beautiful Substack article that talked about eroticism in nature, and I'm going to share it somewhere here. In this philosophical exploration of nature, Luce Irigaray argues that our tendons are the extension of nature itself, and that nature is the extension of our very energy, which highlights the importance of a stable relationship to nature. Drawing from personal life, the book constructs the metamorphosis between the natural realm and the human condition, aiming to maintain in equilibrium the two parts. But truly living seasonally, I learned from the writers, I learned from the poets, I learned from the other artists. There's specifically two writers who I want to talk about for this video, and of course that is Mary Oliver, but I also really loved Jarod K. Anderson's memoir, Something in the Woods Loves You. These are two great, excellent texts that dive in deep on the lessons you can find in nature. Mary Oliver's poetry reads like little prayers to me, so I always take away something from it whenever I dive into this work. Jarod K. Anderson's experience of going through depression and learning so much from the seasons of nature actually really kind of instilled that last kind of idea in my head that we are seasonal creatures. And to be adaptable and to be more resilient as seasonal creatures means we should embrace that instead of trying to live in like rigid structures, because nature doesn't even live in a rigid structure. Nature has its own kind of flow, but it's always adapting, it's always changing. So I'm learning a lot of things from nature itself as well. Now, this is coming from somebody who's not an outdoorsy person. I don't hike, I don't sleep out in the woods. You will catch me never doing any of that because I
also have this like phobia of like insects and bugs, but like I also understand that I'm the problem, they're not the problem. I know it's me, I know it's not them.
But I do like being outside and I do enjoy outdoor settings. I just won't go like, I don't know, cave diving. I mean, there's a reason why humans were never meant to be in caves in the first place. Like, leave that to the bats and all the other critters. Why are we in their space? You know what I'm trying to say? There was another book that really had an impact on me. And I know this is a bit of a controversial book to talk about because so many people have different opinions on it. But personally for me, when I read Women Who Run with the Wolves, this book really felt very empowering to read. It's about embracing the wild woman inside us. It's about embracing that we are cyclical beings. It's about embracing that we are always going through cycles of change. And it's also about embracing the things that empower us as women. And I think this was just such a beautiful, beautiful text. And it also is in relation to nature. So I feel like it's really interesting to see this combination of like the self and nature and how it like ties in together and the many, many things that we could basically learn from it. And these are just like certain things that I have started to really kind of lean heavily on. And this is the reason why, you know, when I started doing this video and I started taking my notes on it and researching on it and trying to figure out how to phrase this, when I broke it down into these final parts, I was like, these are my foundation. I'm still trying to figure out my filming schedule with YouTube. I still don't really have structure with this, but it is something I really want to pursue and create, so I'm going to keep doing it. And what you'll probably be seeing from me on this channel so far is me working on the series and also sharing maybe like my monthly reading roundup. So I'm going to probably share like more in-depth book reviews on some of the books that I'm reading and maybe some of the media I'm consuming. And yeah, and I currently have to get ready to leave, so I'm gonna sign off here. I hope you guys have a great day. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you in another video. Bye.